The blizzard came down like a wall of white fury across the Montana high country, turning the world into nothing but wind and cold. Cole Brennan stood at the fence line of the Granger Ranch, his breath coming out in clouds that the wind tore away before they could fully form. His fingers were numb inside gloves that had been patched 3 times and wouldn't last another winter. His boots, worn thin at the soles, let in moisture that had already soaked through his socks. At 24 years old, Cole looked older, his face weathered by long hours and harsh conditions, his eyes carrying the particular exhaustion of a man who worked himself to the bone and still barely scraped by. The ranch where he labored belonged to someone else. The wages he earned kept him fed, but little more. The small room he rented above the feed store in Timber Falls had a leaking roof and a furnace that quit when temperatures dropped below freezing. This was his life. This had always been his life. And some mornings, like this one, Cole wondered if it would ever be anything different. He was checking the north fence line, a job nobody wanted in weather like this, when he saw her. A small shape moving through the snow, stumbling, barely visible against the white landscape. Cole stopped, squinting through the driving wind, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. A filly, white as the snow itself, her coat crusted with ice, her legs trembling as she struggled through drifts that reached past her thin knees. She was alone, lost. And if someone didn't help her soon, she'd be dead before the sun managed to burn through the storm clouds. Cole moved toward her carefully, hands outstretched, voice low and soothing, despite the wind that carried his words away. "Easy now, easy." The filly lifted her head, her eyes, dark and intelligent and filled with something Cole couldn't name, locked onto his. For a moment, they simply stared at each other across the snow. Then the filly took 2 unsteady steps backward, not running away exactly, but retreating, waiting. Cole stopped. Every instinct told him to keep approaching, to catch her before she bolted into the storm and disappeared. But something in her posture, in the deliberate way she was watching him, made him pause. The filly whinnied. The sound was high and urgent, cutting through the wind like a blade. Then she turned and moved away from him, not fleeing in panic, but walking with purpose, constantly looking back over her shoulder as if checking to see if he was following. "What the hell?" Cole muttered under his breath. The filly stopped about 20 yards away and whinnied again. Louder this time, insistent. Her dark eyes never left him, and in them, Cole saw something he had learned to recognize after years of working with. Animals. Desperation. Not the desperate fear of a creature trying to survive. Something different, something that looked almost like pleading. Against every ounce of common sense he possessed, Cole started following her. The filly immediately moved forward, leading him away from the fence line, away from the ranch buildings barely visible through the storm, toward the rocky ridge that marked the edge of the property. The terrain grew treacherous, ice-slicked stones hidden beneath the snow, drop-offs that appeared without warning, wind that howled between the rocks like something alive and angry. Cole's legs burned from the effort of trudging through the deep drifts. His lungs ached from breathing air so cold it felt like knives. But the filly kept going, kept looking back, kept urging him forward with that strange insistence that felt almost human in its intensity. Then the wind shifted, and Cole heard it, faint, almost lost in the storm, but unmistakable. A groan, human, pain-filled, coming from somewhere just ahead. The filly had led him to the edge of a narrow ravine, and when Cole peered over, his heart stopped. The man lay at the bottom of the ravine, partially buried in snow, pinned beneath a massive fallen log that must have come down during the night. Even from this distance, Cole could see the unnatural angle of his right leg, the gray pallor of his face, the way his chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths that spoke of hours spent in freezing temperatures with no help and no hope. Cole didn't hesitate. He slid down the ravine's steep slope, half falling, catching himself on rocks and roots, landing hard beside the trapped man. Up close, he could see more, the ice crystals forming in the man's white beard, the way his lips had turned blue, the fine tremor that ran through his entire body as hypothermia tightened its grip. "Hey," Cole said, kneeling beside him, pulling off his own gloves to check for a pulse. "Can you hear me?" The man's eyes fluttered open. They were blue, pale as winter sky, and clouded with pain. His voice when he spoke was barely a whisper, each word an obvious effort. "Been Here. Hours. I've got you. Cole's mind was already racing, cataloging the problems and the solutions in the methodical way he'd learned from years of dealing with ranch emergencies. The log was too heavy to lift alone. The man's leg was badly broken. Moving him wrong could cause more damage, could sever an artery, could kill him. But leaving him here while Cole went for help meant leaving him to freeze to death before anyone could return. There was no good choice, only the least bad one. Cole stripped off his heavy coat, the only warm thing he owned, the one barrier between him and the killing cold, and wrapped it around the injured man. Then he looked around for leverage, for anything he could use to shift the log just enough to pull the man free. A broken branch, thick and sturdy, lay half buried nearby. Cole grabbed it, wedged it beneath the log, and threw all his weight against it. The log shifted, barely, maybe an inch, but an inch was enough. The man screamed when Cole pulled him free, a sound of pure agony that echoed off the ravine walls and made Cole's stomach turn. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. He got his arms under the man's shoulders and lifted, feeling every muscle in his back protest, feeling the cold start to bite through his flannel shirt now that the coat was gone. The man was lighter than Cole expected, just bone and gristle and worn leather held together by sheer stubbornness. Cole got him settled across his shoulders in a fireman's carry and started the brutal climb back up the ravine. The filly waited at the top, standing like a white sentinel against the gray storm. When Cole reached level ground, gasping, his vision starting to blur from exertion and cold, the filly turned and started walking, leading them back, showing the way. Cole followed her through the blizzard, each step an act of will, his passenger growing heavier with every yard. The wind tried to knock them down. The snow tried to blind them. But the filly kept moving forward, kept looking back, kept pulling Cole along through sheer force of determination. When the ranch buildings finally emerged from the white chaos, Cole nearly wept with relief. His truck sat where he'd left it that morning, already buried to the wheel wells in fresh snow. He got the man into the passenger seat, cranked the heat as high as it would go, and pointed the truck toward town. The drive to Timber Falls took 40 minutes that felt like hours. The injured man drifted in and out of consciousness, muttering things Cole couldn't understand, but he was breathing, still alive, still fighting. The hospital emergency room erupted into controlled chaos when Cole carried him through the doors. Nurses descended, a doctor barked orders, and suddenly Cole was standing alone in a waiting room, shivering violently, his clothes soaked through, his hands so numb he couldn't feel his fingers. A nurse brought him blankets, coffee, questions he answered mechanically, where he'd found the man, how long he'd been exposed, what injuries Cole had observed. Then she left him alone with instructions to stay warm, and Cole sat in a plastic chair under fluorescent lights and waited to learn if the man he'd saved would survive. Hours passed. The storm outside showed no signs of breaking. Cole dozed fitfully, jerking awake every time someone walked past, until finally a doctor in green scrubs emerged and sat down beside him. "He's going to make it," the doctor said without preamble. "Thanks to you. Another hour out there, and we'd be having a different conversation." Cole felt something release in his chest. His leg! Broken in 2 places, required surgery to set properly. He'll need months of recovery, physical therapy, probably always walk with a limp. But he's alive, and he's asking for you. The doctor led Cole to a room, where the man lay propped up in bed, his leg in a cast, color returning to his weathered face. His eyes, those pale blue eyes, tracked Cole as he entered, sharp and assessing, despite the obvious pain and exhaustion. "Name's Sam Harlow," the man said, his voice stronger now, but still rough around the edges. "And you're the one who pulled me out of hell. Cole Brennan." Cole stayed near the door, suddenly awkward, unsure what protocol demanded in situations like this. "Didn't do anything special. You carried me 3 miles through a blizzard with a broken leg and hypothermia. That's plenty special." Sam studied him with an intensity that made Cole want to look away. "How'd you find me? That ravine's off any trail. No reason for anyone to be out that way, especially not in weather like this." Cole explained about the filly, about the way she'd appeared in the storm, about how she'd led him straight to the ravine, as if she'd known exactly where Sam was and exactly who could help. Sam's expression shifted into something like wonder. "White filly, young, maybe 6 months old. Yeah, that's Starlight, my youngest, born last spring on my ranch. Sam's voice grew quiet, reverent almost. Smart as they come, I raised her from the day she was born, talked to her like she could understand every word, and I'll be damned if she didn't prove me right. She saved your life, Cole said. Led me straight to you. She saved both our lives. Sam looked at Cole directly. Because I have a feeling you needed saving just as much as I did. The words hit Cole harder than they should have. He didn't know how to respond, so he just nodded and stood there in the hospital room, while Sam watched him with those knowing eyes that seemed to see straight through to all the broken, struggling places Cole tried to keep hidden. The hospital kept Sam for a week, and Cole visited every day. At first, he told himself it was just courtesy, checking on the man he'd rescued, making sure he was healing properly. But the truth was more complicated. Sam Harlow had a way of talking that made Cole want to listen, a lifetime of stories about horses and ranching, and the kind of hard-won wisdom that came from decades of making mistakes and learning from them. Sam's ranch, Cole learned, sat about 10 miles outside Timber Falls, carved into the foothills where the land met the mountains. Sam had built it 40 years ago with his wife Rose, starting with nothing but a dream and a willingness to work themselves to the bone. They'd raised horses, not for racing or showing, but the old-fashioned way, breeding for temperament and intelligence and the kind of sturdy reliability that made a horse worth keeping for a lifetime. Rose had died 8 years back, cancer that came quick and brutal. Sam had kept the ranch going alone ever since, but Cole could hear the loneliness in his voice when he talked about the empty house, the quiet evenings, the feeling of building something beautiful and having no one to share it with. No kids? Cole asked during one visit. Sam shook his head. Never happened for us. Rose and I tried for years, but sometimes the world has other plans. We made our peace with it. The horses became our family. He paused. Problem with that kind of family is they can't inherit a ranch when you're gone. The words hung between them, heavy with implications that Cole wasn't sure he understood. When Sam was finally released from the hospital, Cole drove him home. The ranch was everything Sam had described and more. A neat white house with a wraparound porch, a large barn painted red with white trim, fenced pastures where a small herd of horses grazed despite the lingering snow. Starlight was among them, her white coat gleaming in the weak winter sunlight. And when she saw Sam's truck pull up, she cantered to the fence and whinnied in greeting. Sam's eyes went wet. Missed you too, girl. Getting Sam settled back into his house took hours. Cole carried in supplies, made sure the heat was working, helped Sam navigate stairs he could barely climb with his casted leg. The whole time, Sam kept trying to pay him, kept insisting Cole accept money for his time. But Cole refused. It didn't feel right, taking payment for something that had just been the decent thing to do. At least let me feed you, Sam said finally. I can't cook worth a damn right now, but my freezer's full of casseroles the church ladies brought. We can heat something up and you can tell me about yourself. Fair trade. They ate at Sam's kitchen table, a scarred oak piece that had probably been there since the house was built. Sam asked questions, where Cole was from, how he'd ended up working at the Granger Ranch, what his plans were for the future, and Cole, who normally kept his past locked up tight, found himself talking about growing up in foster care after his mother died, about aging out of the system at 18 with no family and no safety net, about the series of ranch jobs that had taught him to work with horses but never paid enough to build anything resembling a future. You're good with them, Sam observed. The horses, I can tell. You've got gentle hands and patient eyes. That's rare. Cole shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I try. Trying's all any of us can do. Sam was quiet for a moment, then added, The Granger Ranch paying you fair? They're paying me what they can afford. That's not what I asked. Cole met Sam's eyes. No, they're not paying me fair, but jobs are scarce out here, and I need the work. Sam nodded slowly, like this confirmed something he'd already suspected. My place needs help, especially now, with me laid up for months. I can't pay much more than Granger, but I can offer room and board. The guest house hasn't been used since Rose's sister stopped visiting, but it's warm and dry and better than what you've got now. The offer stunned Cole into silence. He stared at Sam, searching for the catch, the strings, attached, the inevitable betrayal that came when things seemed too good to be true. Why? He finally asked. Because I need help, and you need a better situation. Because Starlight led you to me for a reason, and I've learned to trust that little filly's judgment. Because, Sam paused, his voice growing rough. Because I'm an old man with no family and a ranch that'll die with me unless I find someone who cares about it the way I do, and I think maybe you could be that someone. Cole's throat tightened. You don't even know me. I know you carried a stranger 3 miles through a blizzard. I know you visit an old man in the hospital every day without expecting anything in return. I know my horse trusts you, and horses don't lie about people the way humans do. Sam leaned forward. Give it a month. Help me keep this place running while I heal, stay in the guest house, see if it fits. If it doesn't work out, no hard feelings. But at least give it a chance. Cole looked out the window at the pastures, at the horses moving peacefully in the fading light, at Starlight standing near the fence like she was waiting for his answer. 1 month, he said. Sam smiled. 1 month. Cole gave his notice at the Granger Ranch the next day. His boss took it with barely disguised relief. 1 less mouth to feed during a lean winter. Cole packed his few belongings into his truck in less than an hour, said goodbye to the leaking room above the feed store, and drove to Sam Harlow's ranch feeling like he was stepping off a cliff into empty air. The guest house was small but immaculate. 1 bedroom, a kitchenette, a bathroom with hot water that actually worked. It had been Rose's craft room before she converted it for guests, and traces of her remained in the careful details. Curtains she'd sewn, a quilt on the bed she'd pieced together, photographs on the wall of her and Sam when they were young and building something from nothing. Cole unpacked, which took all of 10 minutes, then reported to the main house where Sam had a list of tasks waiting. Feeding schedules for each horse, their individual needs and quirks, the fence sections that needed repair, the barn roof that leaked in one corner. Sam couldn't do the physical work himself, not with his leg, but he could teach, and Cole could learn. And together they fell into a rhythm that felt natural in a way nothing in Cole's life ever had before. The horses were Sam's pride and joy, and he introduced Cole to each one like they were members of his family. There was Thunder, the oldest gelding who'd been Sam's riding horse for 20 years. Willow, a gentle mare with a talent for soothing nervous foals. Ghost, a gray stallion with the temperament of a saint. And Starlight, the white filly who'd started it all, who followed Cole around the pasture like a devoted dog and whinnied whenever she saw him coming. She's attached to you, Sam observed one morning, watching from the porch as Cole worked with Starlight in the round pen. Never seen her take to anyone that fast, not even me. Cole ran a hand down Starlight's neck, feeling the muscles shift beneath her winter coat. She's special. That she is. Her mother was Ghost's daughter, best horse I ever bred. Starlight's got her temperament and her intelligence, plus something extra I can't quite name. Intuition, maybe. An understanding of people that goes deeper than training. Sam was quiet for a moment. She's yours, you know. Cole looked up sharply. What? Starlight? I'm giving her to you. She led you to me, which means she chose you. I'm just acknowledging what's already true. Sam, I can't. You can and you will. Consider it payment for saving my life. Or a gift. Or whatever makes you comfortable accepting her. Sam's voice was firm. That filly deserves someone who will love her the way she deserves, and I think that someone is you. Cole opened his mouth to argue, then closed it again. Starlight was watching him with those dark, intelligent eyes, and he realized Sam was right. She had chosen him. From that first moment in the blizzard, she'd known exactly what she was doing. Thank you, Cole said quietly. Don't thank me yet. You're taking on a lifetime of responsibility with that one. Horses live 25, 30 years if you treat them right. That's a long commitment. I know. Cole met Sam's eyes. I'm ready for it. The days passed into weeks, and the weeks into months. Winter slowly loosened its grip on the high country, snow melting to reveal the brown grass beneath, temperatures climbing above, freezing more often than not. Sam's leg healed slowly but steadily, and as his mobility improved, he started teaching Cole things that couldn't be learned from books, the subtle language of horse behavior, the way to read the sky for weather changes, the quiet satisfaction of building something with your own hands that would outlast you. They worked together in companionable silence, broken by occasional conversation. Sam told stories about the early days of the ranch, about Rose and her fierce determination to succeed despite everyone telling them they'd fail. Cole shared less, but what he did share, fragments of his lonely childhood, his struggles to find a place in the world, Sam received with quiet understanding and no judgment. "You're good at this," Sam said one evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set behind the mountains. "The ranch work, the horses, all of it. Natural talent's rare. Most people have to work twice as hard to get half as far." Cole shrugged, uncomfortable as always with praise. "I'm just doing what you taught me. I'm teaching you technique. The heart you bring to it, that's all yours." Sam was quiet for a moment, then added, "You ever think about what comes next, after your month is up?" The month had passed 3 weeks ago, but neither of them had mentioned it. Cole had simply kept working, kept staying, and Sam had seemed content with the arrangement. "I'd like to keep working here," Cole said carefully, "if you'll have me. I'll have you as long as you want to stay." Sam's voice was rough with emotion. "Truth is, this place feels alive again with you here, like it did when Rose was still around. I didn't realize how much I missed that until you showed up." They sat in silence as the stars began to emerge, and Cole felt something shift inside him. Not just gratitude for a job and a roof over his head, but something deeper. The feeling of belonging somewhere, of mattering to someone, of building something that might actually last. "Sam," Cole said after a while. "Yeah? Thank you for taking a chance on me." Sam reached over and gripped Cole's shoulder, his weathered hand strong despite the months of recovery. "Thank you for being worth the chance." Summer came to the Montana high country, with an explosion of wildflowers and green grass that transformed the ranch into something out of a painting. The horses thrived, their coats gleaming with health, and Starlight grew from a gangly filly into a young mare with lines that promised future beauty. She stayed devoted to Cole, following him around the property, whinnying when he was out of sight too long, pressing her nose against his hand like she was constantly checking to make sure he was real. Cole had never been happier. The work was hard but satisfying, the kind of labor that left him physically exhausted but mentally clear. Sam continued teaching him everything he knew about horses and ranching, and Cole soaked it up like parched earth drinking rain. They fell into an easy partnership, Sam's experience and wisdom balanced by Cole's youth and energy, both of them working toward the same goal of keeping the ranch thriving. But beneath the surface contentment, Cole noticed changes in Sam that worried him. The old cowboy tired more easily now, needed more breaks, sometimes pressed a hand to his chest like something hurt there. Cole asked about it once, and Sam waved him off with assurances that it was just age catching up with him. Nothing to worry about. Cole worried anyway. In late July, Sam called a doctor to the ranch. Cole wasn't supposed to overhear the conversation, but sound carried through the old house's thin walls. "Heart disease," the doctor said. "Progressive and incurable. Sam had maybe a year, probably less. There were treatments that might buy more time, but at his age, with his body already weakened from the accident, the outcome was inevitable." Cole stood frozen in the barn, listening to his world crack apart, while Sam thanked the doctor for his honesty and showed him out with the same grace he showed everyone. That evening, Sam found Cole working late in the barn, reorganizing tack that didn't need reorganizing, staying busy to avoid thinking about what he'd heard. "You know," Sam said from the doorway. It wasn't a question. Cole's hand stilled on the bridle he'd been cleaning. "Yeah? I figured you might. These walls are thin, and you've always been observant." Sam came into the barn slowly, moving to Thunder's stall and stroking the old gelding's nose. "I want you to know I'm not afraid. I've had a good life, longer than I deserved, and I got to see one more spring on this land. That's more than most people get. That doesn't make it fair." Cole's voice came out rougher than he intended. "Fair's got nothing to do with it. We all die eventually. At least I know it's coming, can make my peace with it." Sam looked at Cole directly. "Can plan for what comes after." Cole wanted to argue, to rage against the unfairness of finding something good only to have it ripped away. But the acceptance in Sam's eyes stopped him. This wasn't about Cole's pain. It was about Sam's dignity, his right to face death on his own terms. "What do you need from me?" Cole asked instead. "Keep doing what you're doing. Help me keep this place running for however long I've got. And when I'm gone," Sam's voice caught slightly, "when I'm gone, remember what I taught you. Remember that this land and these horses deserve someone who loves them. Remember that you're worth more than you believe. They didn't speak about it again directly, but the knowledge hung between them, shaping their days in subtle ways. Sam started telling Cole more stories, downloading a lifetime of memories like he was afraid they'd be lost if he didn't get them out. He showed Cole the business side of the ranch, the bank accounts, the tax records, the network of buyers and sellers who kept the operation financially viable. "You should know this stuff," Sam explained when Cole protested that he didn't need to learn the administrative details. Never know when knowledge like this might come in handy. The summer faded into fall, leaves turning gold and red in the cottonwoods along the creek. Sam grew weaker, the decline gradual but undeniable. He couldn't ride anymore, could barely make it to the barn without needing to rest. But he still sat on the porch every evening, watching Cole work with the horses, offering guidance and encouragement, and the kind of quiet approval that meant more to Cole than any amount of money ever could. In October, Sam asked Cole to help him write letters to old friends scattered across the state, to the pastor at the church Rose had loved, to the lawyer in town who'd handled their estate planning. Sam dictated while Cole wrote, his hand moving across paper, recording Sam's final wishes and goodbyes. "There's one more," Sam said when the others were finished. "This one you don't need to write. I already did." He pulled an envelope from his desk drawer, yellowed with age, Cole's name written across the front in Sam's careful script. "Don't open it yet. When the time comes, you'll know." Cole took the letter, his hands trembling slightly, and tucked it into his jacket pocket without reading it. Sam Harlow died on a Tuesday in early November, peacefully in his sleep, with the first snow of the season falling softly outside his window. Cole found him in the morning when he came to the main house for coffee like he always did, and for a long moment he just stood there, looking at the peaceful expression on Sam's weathered face, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath his feet. He'd known this was coming, had been preparing for it, or thought he had, but no amount of preparation made the reality any less devastating. Cole handled the necessary calls with mechanical efficiency: the doctor, the funeral home, the lawyer, the friends who needed to be notified. People came to the ranch throughout the day, offering condolences and help, but Cole barely registered them. He moved through the motions of what needed to be done, but inside he felt hollowed out, scraped raw, like something essential had been carved from his chest, and he was just now realizing how much it had held him together. The funeral was held 4 days later at the small church in Timber Falls. The building was packed. Sam had touched more lives than Cole realized, had been respected by a community that didn't give respect easily. Person after person stood to share stories about Sam's kindness, his integrity, his quiet generosity that helped neighbors without ever seeking credit. Cole sat in the front pew and tried to hold himself together, tried to be the kind of man Sam would have been proud of, but when they lowered the casket into the ground next to Rose's grave, something inside him broke. He stayed at the cemetery long after everyone else left, standing in the cold November wind, trying to figure out how to keep going when the person who'd given him a reason to try was gone. Starlight found him there at dusk, having somehow gotten out of her pasture. Or maybe Cole had left the gate open without realizing it. The white mare came right up to him and pressed her head against his chest, and Cole wrapped his arms around her neck and finally let himself cry. He was supposed to have more time, Cole told her, knowing she couldn't understand but needing to say it anyway. "We were supposed to have more time." Starlight made a soft sound, and Cole chose to believe it was agreement. The week after the funeral passed in a blur of grief and obligation. Cole kept the ranch running because the horses still needed feeding and the fences still needed checking, and stopping would mean sitting still with his thoughts, which he couldn't handle yet. He moved through each day mechanically, doing what needed to be done, collapsing into bed exhausted, and waking up to do it all again. On the 8th day, a black sedan pulled up the drive. A woman in a business suit emerged, carrying a leather briefcase that marked her as someone official. Cole met her on the porch, wary and tired, expecting bad news because that seemed to be all the universe had for him lately. "Mr. Brennan, I'm Catherine Garrett, attorney for Sam Harlow's estate." She offered her hand, and Cole shook it automatically. "I'm sorry for your loss. Sam spoke of you often. He thought very highly of you." Cole's throat tightened. "Thank you. Is there somewhere we can talk privately?" They sat at Sam's kitchen table, the same scarred oak surface where Cole and Sam had shared so many meals and conversations. Catherine Garrett opened her briefcase with practiced efficiency, pulling out folders and documents that looked official and complicated. "Sam updated his will 6 months ago," she began. "He was very specific about his wishes and very clear about his reasoning. He wanted me to give you this first." She handed Cole an envelope, the same one Sam had given him weeks ago, that Cole had tucked away without opening. His name was written across the front in Sam's careful handwriting, and seeing it now, knowing Sam's hand would never write anything again, made Cole's eyes burn with tears he refused to let fall. "Would you like privacy to read it?" Catherine asked gently. Cole nodded, not trusting his voice, and she excused herself to wait on the porch. Alone in the kitchen, Cole opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were 2 pages of lined paper, filled with Sam's familiar script. Cole took a deep breath and started reading. "Dear Cole, if you're reading this, then I've gone on ahead, and you're sitting in my kitchen trying to figure out what comes next. I want to help with that if you'll let me. First things first, thank you. Thank you for pulling me out of that ravine. Thank you for the months we got to spend working together. Thank you for giving an old man someone to talk to who actually listened. Thank you for loving these horses the way they deserve to be loved. And thank you for being exactly who you are, even when the world tried to convince you that wasn't good enough. I've been thinking a lot about legacy lately. What we leave behind when we're gone, how we mark our time on this earth. For years, I thought my legacy would be this ranch, this land I built with Rose. But watching you these past months, I realized I was wrong. Land is just dirt. Buildings are just wood and nails. What matters is the people who care for them, who breathe life into them, who make them mean something. You did that, Cole. You made this place come alive again, after years of it just existing. You gave me a reason to wake up each morning, besides habit. You showed me that the work Rose and I did might actually continue after I'm gone, might grow into something even better than what we built. That's why I'm leaving it all to you. The ranch, the house, the land, every horse in those pastures, it's all yours now. I know what you're thinking, that you don't deserve it, that there must be some mistake, that I should have family to leave it to instead. But you're wrong on all counts. You deserve it because you'll care for it properly. There's no mistake because I've been planning this for months. And you are family, the kind you choose rather than inherit, which in my experience is the only kind that really matters. The paperwork's all drawn up legal. Catherine will help you understand what you're inheriting and what responsibilities come with it. There's some money in the accounts, not a fortune, but enough to keep the place running if you're careful. The horses are worth something if you ever need to sell a few, though I hope you won't unless you absolutely have to. I know you're scared. I know you're probably sitting there convinced you'll fail, that you'll lose everything, that you're not capable of maintaining what I built. That's the fear talking, and fear's a liar. You've been doing most of the work here for months already. You know these horses better than I did. You understand this land and what it needs. Trust yourself the way I trusted you when I offered you that job all those months ago. Take care of Starlight especially. That filly's special, and she's bonded to you in a way I've never seen before. Honor that bond. Let her remind you on hard days why you do this work. And Cole, don't be alone. Don't lock yourself away on this ranch and pretend that's enough. Build connections. Find someone to share this with eventually. You've got too much heart to waste it on isolation. Rose and I built this place together, and that partnership made it better than anything I could have done alone. You deserve that kind of partnership too. I wish I had more time to teach you everything I know, but time's the one thing none of us can buy more of. You'll learn the rest by doing, by making mistakes and figuring out how to fix them. That's how everyone learns who's worth anything. Thank you for these last months. Thank you for being the son I never had but always wanted. Thank you for giving me hope that the work Rose and I started will continue long after we're both dust. Live well, Cole. Love those horses. Build something good here that makes you proud. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. I know it even if you don't yet. With all my respect and affection, Sam Cole sat in the silent kitchen, tears streaming down his face, reading the letter 3 more times before he could even begin to process what it meant. Sam had left him everything. The ranch, the house, the horses, all of it. A life Cole had never imagined he could have, handed to him by a man who'd seen potential Cole never knew existed. He felt overwhelmed, terrified, honored, grateful, like he'd been given a gift too precious to accept, but too meaningful to refuse. Catherine came back inside after a respectful interval, and together they went through the legal documents that formalized Sam's wishes. The property deed was being transferred to Cole's name. The bank accounts, modest but sufficient, were now under his control. The horses were his, 12 of them, including Starlight, each one a responsibility and a promise. Sam was very clear about his intentions, Catherine explained. He wanted you to have security, to have the foundation for a real life. He believed you'd honor what he and Rose built here, while also making it your own. I don't know if I can, Cole admitted, the words coming out rough and honest. What if I fail? What if I lose everything he worked his whole life to build? Catherine smiled gently. Sam anticipated that worry. He told me to tell you, and I quote, "Failure is trying nothing for fear of losing. Success is caring enough to keep trying even when it's hard. Cole's got success in his bones. He just needs to trust it." She paused. He believed in you completely. Maybe it's time you started believing in yourself. The first weeks of ownership were the hardest Cole had ever experienced. Every decision felt monumental, weighted with the responsibility of honoring Sam's legacy. Every small success was tempered by the wish that Sam could see it. Every setback felt like confirmation of Cole's secret fear that he wasn't good enough for this gift. But the horses needed feeding, the fences needed mending. Winter was coming, and the ranch had to be ready. So Cole worked, one task at a time, one day at a time, slowly learning to trust the knowledge Sam had given him. The community rallied in ways Cole hadn't expected. Neighbors who'd known Sam for decades stopped by with advice, offers of help, supplies they insisted were extras they didn't need. The veterinarian who'd cared for Sam's horses gave Cole her personal number and told him to call any time, day, or night. The feed store owner extended credit without question, telling Cole that Sam's word had always been good, and his was too by association. People around here take care of their own, the store owner explained. And you're one of ours now. The label, one of ours, settled on Cole's shoulders like a warm coat. He'd never been part of a community before, never had neighbors who knew his name and actually cared whether he succeeded or failed. It was strange and uncomfortable and wonderful all at once. As winter settled in for real, Cole established routines that were his own, while still honoring what Sam had taught him. He started a breeding program with Willow and Ghost, hoping to produce foals with the same temperament and intelligence Starlight possessed. He repaired the barn roof that had been leaking for years. He installed better heating in the horse shelter, making sure his animals would stay comfortable through the brutal Montana winter. And every evening, he sat on the porch, Sam's porch, his porch now, and watched the sun set behind the mountains while Starlight grazed nearby, and felt something very close to contentment. The first foal was born in early spring, a filly as white as Starlight, with her mother's gentle eyes. Cole named her Hope, because that's what she represented. The continuation of Sam's dream, the promise that this ranch would survive and thrive into the future. Word spread about Cole's operation, and people started asking about buying horses. Cole was careful about who he sold to, making sure each animal went to someone who'd treat them right, turning down offers from buyers who just wanted cheap work horses or animals for their kids to outgrow in a year. Sam's breeding philosophy had been quality over quantity. Animals raised with care and sold to people who'd appreciate them, and Cole honored that completely. The ranch started turning a small profit by its second year under Cole's management. Not enough to get rich, but enough to maintain the property, improve the facilities, and save a little for emergencies. Cole hired a part-time helper during busy seasons, a teenager from town looking for after-school work who reminded Cole of himself at that age, hungry for knowledge and desperate for a place to belong. "You're good at this," the kid said one day after Cole taught him how to properly clean a hoof. "Like, really good. How'd you learn?" "From someone who believed I could," Cole answered. "Same way you're learning now." Years passed. The ranch became known throughout the region for producing exceptional horses with calm temperaments and sharp intelligence. Cole's reputation grew, the young guy who'd inherited Sam Harlow's place and not only kept it going, but actually improved it. Marriage proposals from local women started arriving, some sincere, some clearly just after the property, but Cole declined them all politely. Sam's letter had told him not to be alone forever, and Cole knew he'd find partnership eventually. But he also knew better than to rush into something just to avoid solitude. He had the horses after all. He had the land. He had work that mattered and a community that accepted him. That was more than he'd ever had before, more than he'd believed possible during those cold mornings checking fence lines for wages that barely kept him fed. 5 years after Sam's death, Cole stood in the same spot where he'd first seen Starlight stumbling through the snow. The white mare grazed nearby, now fully grown and magnificent, a mother herself to 3 foals who'd inherited her intelligence and gentle nature. She looked up when Cole approached, and her dark eyes still held that same knowing quality, like she understood things humans could only guess at. "You changed everything," Cole told her, running his hand along her neck, feeling the strong muscles beneath her gleaming coat. "You know that?" Starlight made a soft sound that might have been agreement. Cole thought about the journey that had led him here, the desperate poverty of his early 20s, the hopelessness of feeling trapped in temporary jobs that led nowhere. The morning he'd heard a filly's desperate whinny and followed it into a blizzard. Every choice he'd made that day could have gone differently. He could have ignored the sound, could have turned back when the storm got worse, could have decided saving a stranger wasn't worth the risk. But he'd followed Starlight anyway, and she'd led him to Sam, and Sam had given him a life he never could have built alone. The ranch thrived now in ways that would have made Sam proud. Cole had expanded the breeding program, added 2 more mares with excellent bloodlines, and was developing a reputation for producing horses that were as intelligent as they were beautiful. He'd renovated the guest house and started offering it to traveling ranch hands looking for seasonal work, passing forward the same kind of opportunity Sam had given him. He'd also started dating someone, a veterinarian named Rachel, who'd taken over the practice from the doctor who'd cared for Sam's horses. She understood the demands of ranch life, loved horses almost as much as Cole did, and never once suggested he sell the property and move somewhere more convenient. They were taking it slow, building something solid, and Cole could see a future there that included partnership and maybe eventually a family to fill the empty rooms in Sam's house. Their house now, though Cole still thought of it as Sam's, sometimes. The anniversary of Sam's death came around each November, and Cole always spent it the same way, visiting the cemetery where Sam and Rose were buried side by side, bringing flowers and spending an hour telling them about the ranch, about the horses, about how their legacy was growing in ways they'd probably never imagined. "You were right," Cole said during this year's visit, standing between the 2 graves with his hat in his hands. "About all of it. I was worth the chance you took. I could handle the responsibility, and I wasn't alone forever. Found someone who makes me better, same way you said I would." The wind rustled through the bare cottonwood trees, and Cole chose to believe it was Sam and Rose acknowledging his words. That evening, Cole sat on the porch with Rachel, watching Starlight and her foals move peacefully across the pasture. The sun was setting behind the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, painting the snow-dusted peaks in colors that took his breath away no matter how many times he saw them. "Tell me again," Rachel said, leaning against him, "about the day you found her." Cole smiled. He'd told this story dozens of times, to neighbors, to buyers, to the kid he'd hired, who was now working full-time and learning everything Cole could teach him. But it never got old, never lost its power to remind him how much could change in a single moment if you were brave enough to follow where you were led. "It was the worst blizzard I'd ever seen," he began, and launched into the tale of a white filly stumbling through snow, of following her across treacherous ground, of finding Sam pinned beneath a log and making the choice to help, despite the risk. Rachel had heard it before, but she listened like it was new, and when Cole got to the part about Sam's letter, about inheriting everything, she squeezed his hand like she understood exactly what that gift had meant. "You earned it," she said when he finished, "not just by saving him, but by honoring what he built, by making it better, by passing it forward to others who need what you needed back then." "I try." Cole watched Starlight nuzzle one of her foals, teaching it something with the same patience Sam had shown him. "Some days, I still can't believe this is my life, that I get to wake up here every morning, do work I love, care for these animals. It feels too good to be real." "It's real because you made it real. You worked for it, fought for it, refused to let fear convince you that you didn't deserve it." Rachel looked at him seriously. "Sam gave you the foundation, but you built everything else. Don't discount that." Winter returned to Montana the way it always did. Gradually at first, then all at once, transforming the world into white silence and crystalline beauty. Cole stood at the fence line early one December morning, his breath fogging in the cold air, and thought about the man he'd been 5 years ago. Broke, alone, convinced his life would never amount to anything more than scraping by on wages that barely covered rent. That man felt like a stranger now. The ranch was thriving. The horses were healthy. Cole had built something solid here, something that would outlast him, something worthy of Sam's faith and Rose's memory. He'd found love, found community, found purpose in work that made the world slightly better than he'd found it. And it had all started with a filly in a snowstorm. Starlight approached the fence where Cole stood, her breath steaming in the cold morning air. She pressed her nose against his gloved hand, and Cole stroked her neck gently, overwhelmed with gratitude for this creature who'd changed the trajectory of his entire existence. "Thank you," he whispered to her, knowing she couldn't understand the words, but hoping she felt the emotion behind them. "For finding me, for trusting me, for leading me to exactly where I needed to be." Starlight's dark eyes held his, and in them, Cole saw recognition, understanding, the same knowing quality she'd possessed even as a lost filly. She'd known then what Cole hadn't, that following her would lead to salvation for both of them. She'd trusted that knowledge enough to keep looking back, to keep urging him forward, to refuse to give up until he'd found what he didn't know he was seeking. The sun broke over the mountains, painting the snow-covered pastures in shades of pink and gold. Cole's breath caught at the beauty of it, the way it did every morning, and he sent a silent prayer of thanks to wherever Sam and Rose were, for their generosity, their trust, their willingness to see potential in a struggling ranch hand who'd never believed he deserved anything good. Rachel emerged from the house, carrying 2 mugs of coffee, and joined him at the fence. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the horses greet the morning, and Cole felt peace settle over him like a warm blanket. This was home. This was family. This was the life he'd been meant to find all along, waiting for him at the end of a white filly's deliberate path through a Montana blizzard. "I love you," he said to Rachel, the words coming easier now than they had at first. She smiled and leaned against him. "I love you too." Starlight whinnied softly, and Cole chose to believe she was agreeing with the sentiment. The mare had brought him here after all, had led him through danger to salvation, through loss to legacy, through despair to hope. Sometimes, Cole knew now, the most important journeys began with following something you didn't fully understand toward a destination you couldn't see. Sometimes trust and courage were enough. Sometimes a lost horse in a snowstorm was exactly what you needed to find your way home. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of pine and clean snow and possibility. Cole raised his coffee cup toward the mountains, toward the sky, toward whatever force had orchestrated the chain of events that brought him here. "Here's to second chances," he said quietly, "and to the guides who lead us to them." Rachel touched her cup to his, and Starlight stood watching them with those knowing eyes, and the morning sun climbed higher over the ranch that was Cole's now, earned through compassion, sustained through dedication, and forever marked by the memory of an old cowboy who'd believed a struggling young man deserved better than survival. He'd been right,